Hi, JB here, and welcome to my bench. In this episode, I'll be making a replica of the M41A Pulse Rifle, as seen in the Alien Romulus movie. This replica was made for our parody sketch that we filmed last year, so the release of this video is a little bit late. Sorry about that. Now, I'm not going to go through a thorough history of the Alien's Pulse Rifle and how it was originally conceived, as there are much better and dedicated videos on the subject already out there for you to find. If you are interested, I'll have a link to a few of them in the video description. For this video, I'm going to focus on a replica build of the M41A model as seen in Alien Romulus. It's worth bearing in mind that when I started the build, it was before the movie had been released, and only a handful of reference images were available online, and only 3 to 4 3D print models were out there for people to download. Hence, some of the finer details and proportions were a little bit off. During the process of making the replica, I updated and edited some of the original STL files to make it more accurate to the screen-used version. Now, I had to build this replica in a rush, as I had already committed to building other props for our sketch, so this video shows the build process that I undertook on and off for about 2 weeks. Hopefully, it will show what can be done in a relatively short space of time, without any super sophisticated tools, and most of the techniques can be transferred to any similar sci-fi weapon prop that you may be interested in making. The one tool that I heavily relied on was of course my 3D printer. Since I only had access to a resin printer at the time, I had to slice the larger model into smaller sections that would fit onto the build plate. Sections that I could then combine later to make the final build. I printed the parts in resin. Now, normally you'd be better off printing using a larger filament printer, which would make the parts stronger and a bit easier to print. But I did use the resin print method as an advantage, as I knew that I was wanting to add electronics inside. It allowed me to print hollow sections with super thin wall thicknesses, so as to allow me to fit everything that I wanted inside, and also save as much as I could in resin. Now, I wanted this replica to be something more than a static prop. I wanted to emulate the LED segment ammo counter at the very least, and ideally add a functioning flashlight at the front. I found a suitable LED flashlight in one of my drawers and cut it down to length to fit inside the shell. Like most LED flashlights, it had a cold cast LED, which results in quite a cool blue colour to the light, a look that I personally don't like and also not a match for the colour in the film. So I added a small cutout section of CTO gel, often used in the film industry to change the colour temperature of daylight lighting fixtures to become tungsten balanced, or warmer looking. Throughout the 3D printed parts, I made cutouts to the lightweight shell interiors, so I could add additional weight in strategic places, as I wanted the replica to have some realistic weight to it. I did this by hot gluing some steel rod into specific sections, which not only added realistic weight and balance, but also helped to significantly strengthen the assembled resin parts. I added a couple of longer aluminium tubes to act as the barrel and structural spine to the weapon, which helped me keep all of the parts centered and aligned as I joined them together. Making sure that electrical connection was good, I sealed the front section pieces together with superglue and filled any seams with white filler paste.
You want some? Yo, you can't say too. Like and subscribe, motherfucker.
Now for the lower receiver. I decided it would be pretty cool to add some kind of vibration and sound to happen when squeezing the trigger. I was also keen to have a high intensity LED in the barrel, so as to flash at the appropriate speed. So I came up with a low-tech but quite effective solution. So, the mechanical trigger is pinned into position and has a bungee cord to act as its return action. As the trigger is pulled, it contacts a tiny micro switch that then connects the circuit to both the vibration motor and the LED located in the barrel. I mounted a second switch to enable the front flashlight to be turned on and off. This was located at the inside front of the trigger guard, so as to be easily activated by the trigger finger pushing forward. Here I mounted the vibration motor. It's a regular DC motor, but with offset weights attached to a dual shaft. When turning, the motor oscillates and creates vibration. I used one of the weights to act as a mechanical cam that would contact a micro switch once every revolution. This switch is what would make the LED in the barrel flash in time with the motor. The other weight was used as a mechanical cam to strike this aluminium disc that was mounted on a strip of rubber to allow it to flex and strike another metal plate mounted to the shell. This resulted in a very fast drumming or rattling effect that helped mimic the sound of the pulse rifle firing. It may not be fully obvious here because of the rolling shutter on my overhead camera, but the LED is flashing extremely quickly, approximately at the supposed 900 rounds per minute firing rate of the rifle. The LED in the barrel is to help align the timings of the muzzle flashes added in post-production. The LED is also bright enough to provide some localized interactive light. Now, for the LED segment ammo counter. I first installed a small window of tinted perspex for the display and added a miniature push button next to it to switch the display on and off. I designed and 3D printed a 6-segment light box that would allow 6 3mm red LEDs to be mounted in. In the movie, we see 7 segments, but I only wanted to have 6 illuminated, as if the gun had already fired off a few rounds. I then added some strips of diffusion paper until the desired look was achieved. The segments look like they have hotspots on this camera's exposure, but on a better camera and in real life they appear much evenly lit. Ideally, the counter would slowly decrease in its segment display until resetting from a reset signal from a magazine change, but that is beyond my electrical knowledge. If you are watching this and have good skills in custom programming of LEDs, Arduinos or similar gizmos like that, please get in touch if you'd like to collaborate in future projects, as this project really pushed my limited electrical skills. For the stock, the 3D printed parts would actually allow me to make the extension action possible, but I ultimately decided to configure it in the stowed position, as it made the whole rifle far more sturdy and less prone to breakage, and glued it all together in its fixed position. For the paint job, I simply hit all the 3D printed parts with white plastic primer. Then I went in with an airbrush to add colour to the parts that are supposed to be wood, as well as adding shading and weathering. I also added some chrome ink to raised areas that received contact, so as to give the impression of the white paint being chipped or scratched. I found that the best way to add realistic grime and weathering was to repeatedly handle the weapon whilst wearing gloves with weathering paint and dust applied to them. That way, the areas of the concentrated grime and wear would collect in exactly the areas that they would for real, if the weapon was roughly handled and rarely cleaned. Now, since my replica is not 100% accurate to the screen-used version, I avoided the red stripe marking and number 4 as seen on the magazine well in the movie. I imagined that the version I was making was some kind of subtle variant, that perhaps was intended for defense or non-civilian use. I did add a subtle Weyland-Yutani logo onto the magwell area to give it at least some kind of marking. Obviously, nothing can beat the original impact of the M41A Pulse Rifle that we saw in Aliens. But I think the team at Wētā did a great job at designing this precursor model that fits quite nicely into the supposed time frame of the Alien movie franchise. Hopefully, there are some ideas in this video as to how you can make your own pulse rifle replica, or similar sci-fi weapon. If you really like these videos, be sure to check out our Patreon page, where these videos will have a 7-day early access to members. If Patreon isn't your thing, but you'd still like to show your appreciation, there is a no obligation tip jar where you can give what you can so as to keep me supplied in cherry coke. Thank you so much to our existing Patreon members, and thank you everyone else for watching.
JP Stench.